Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. For my next episode of the Xbox Zone, I am going to be reviewing The Outer Worlds, a science fiction RPG by one of the great developers of the genre, Obsidian Entertainment. Over the years they have been responsible for many fantastic games such as Knights of the Old Republic 2, Fallout New Vegas and Alpha Protocol, to name just a few. So I was really excited when the first trailer for The Outer Worlds dropped, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on the finished game. Just before the game was released to the public, Obsidian Entertainment were acquired by Microsoft, which meant that The Outer Worlds would then drop onto Game Pass on launch day, which was great news because I would get to play it at no extra cost to myself. I sometimes find though that I am less inclined to play a game if I haven't invested any money into it, and after playing for roughly 10 or so hours, I set aside The Outer Worlds in favour of whatever else I had just picked up at the time. Then, when the Xbox Series X launched, I picked up the game again, played for a bit longer than before, and stopped once again. 2 sizable pieces of DLC were released over that period of time, which I eventually bought when they were both offered in a sale for a bargain price. When I decided to make a series of new videos about various Xbox games, The Outer Worlds was on that list to complete, and now I have finally done so. I will be sharing my thoughts about the DLC expansions in a separate video once I have had time to play through and complete them, but for now I can at long last share my opinions of the main game with all of you. The game begins with your character being thawed out of cryostasis by an eccentric and quite possibly mad scientist named Phineas Wells, who is asking for your help to thaw out all the remaining colonists that are left in cryo aboard the Hope, a supposedly long-lost colony ship. The board, who oversee the colony and are made up of representatives from various corporations within the colony, have known that the Hope was not in fact lost and was merely very late due to an FTL drive malfunction, and they are deliberately leaving the colonists frozen because they believe they would be an untenable drain on resources, which are already stretched very thin as it is. Phineas believes that for the colony to have any hope of survival, the remaining colonists need to be revived, but he doesn't have the means to do so. Within minutes of touching down in Emerald Vale, you will find yourself adopting the identity of Captain Alex Hawthorne and commandeering his ship, the Unreliable. From then on, you will find yourself faced with many tough decisions about the future of the colony, and over time you will gather a ragtag crew of misfits who will follow you on your adventures. Whether you do indeed decide to help Phineas Wells or turn him into the board is up to you, as is the fate of several groups of colonists across the Halcyon system. This setup allows the developers to offer the player several significant and weighty choices over the span of the story, which will radically change the outcome at the end, which is always something I enjoy in a good RPG and is something that Obsidian typically excel at. There is a key area of The Outer Worlds that doesn't quite match up to their prior output though, and that is the size and scope of the game. The story is significantly briefer than the likes of Fallout New Vegas, with small areas to explore and a running time of roughly 30 hours in total should you decide to do all of the side quests. I understand that this is largely due to Obsidian being an independent developer while they were creating the game, and they had learned from mistakes made in games like KOTOR 2, where the ambition outstripped the budget or time available, resulting in cut content and an ending that felt rushed. I do think that the right decision was made in scaling back the scope so that they could ensure the finished product felt complete and polished, but as a result the game doesn't quite feel as satisfying as New Vegas, where you can really sink your teeth into it for a long time. Your companions are one area that suffer in this regard. Despite all of them being well written and having interesting backstories, it does feel that no sooner have you met them and they have joined your party than you are doing their loyalty missions, and after that they have almost no character growth to speak of. In other RPGs, such as the Mass Effect series, you could have many interesting conversations with your companions before you could complete their loyalty mission, which meant that you felt you really knew what made them tick by the time the end credits rolled. This just feels a tad rushed in The Outer Worlds, and it meant I never truly felt fully immersed. I hope this is addressed in the sequel, and that now Microsoft are funding it, the developers are given as long as they need to craft a truly epic adventure. In terms of presentation, the art design and colour palette of the various planets is stunning. The environments are full of eye-popping greens and purples, with moons and ringed planets looming in the skies above, and Art Deco style buildings on the ground below. This is elevated even further when the game is played on a Series X due to the wonder technology that is Auto HDR, where the game would occasionally stutter here and there, but the performance is also smoothed out on the new generation Xbox, which makes the game a more enjoyable experience overall. I don't really know how anyone could possibly stand to play this game on a Nintendo Switch. Sure, the gameplay is essentially the same, but the performance is horrific, and the screen looks like it's smeared in Vaseline. One area of the graphics that does let the side down are the character models. They all look a bit waxy and mannequin-like, and there simply aren't enough of them. I kept stumbling across random NPCs that had the same face and haircut as my main character, which was unfortunate and immersion breaking. The music is unobtrusive and, other than the main theme, pretty forgettable. In terms of style and instrumentation, it did give me strong Firefly vibes, which makes sense given the same sort of subject matter we are dealing with. The voice acting was very strong across the board, pun intended, especially from some of your companions such as the troubled vicar Max and your engineer friend Parvati. The sound effects are well done too, with the standout being the time dilation sound, which is essentially this game's equivalent to the VAT system. More on this in a moment.
What would you like to discuss? They who are not satisfied with their work are satisfied with nothing. No? How about, work fortifies the spirit. True exhaustion awaits idle hands.
This place is falling apart.
Nice one! Everyone alright?
So I think it's about time I got onto the game mechanics, isn't it? The Outer Worlds plays like a hybrid of a first-person shooter and a Western RPG, and the shooting does feel good in this game. I think that Obsidian's experience making New Vegas has definitely helped here, as the gunplay is more satisfying than it was there, and that was already a significant improvement on Fallout 3 in that regard. The first-person Fallout games had the VAT system to fall back on though, which enabled you to target and lock onto specific body parts and deal direct damage to them. You can't do that here, but you can slow time down to a crawl for a few seconds, and damage dealt in this mode is multiplied, even more so if you choose the right perks when you level up. It ultimately feels more satisfying than VATS because you are in direct control of the action at all times. The Outer Worlds stacks up to most dedicated first-person shooters quite admirably. Moving over to the RPG side of things, the game plays quite similarly to other RPGs in this vein. You earn experience from killing enemies and finishing quests, level up, and then spend points on various attributes such as long guns, short guns, pistols, science, medicines, charm, intimidation, and so on. When you hit certain thresholds within these areas, you unlock something, such as being able to open more difficult locks when you raise your lockpicking to 20, 40, 60, and so on. Every other level you will also earn a perk point that can be spent on a permanent improvement to your character, like headshots doing a lot more damage. There are also mutations that can happen randomly when something keeps happening to you, such as a head trauma mutation when you keep being struck in the cranium. Unlike perks, mutations are normally detrimental and you can refuse to take them, which I normally did to be honest, and most of them are a pain. I've already touched upon the length of the game elsewhere, but let's address it one more time. If you were to do pretty much everything you can, then you could get a running time of 30 hours. If you just decide to complete the main quest line, that goes down to about 15 to 20 hours. 30 hours is not a bad length for a game. In many cases it would feel more than adequate. Somehow the Outer Worlds still manages to feel a bit rushed, narrow in scope and unfulfilling though, and this is my main gripe about the game as a whole. I really hope that this is addressed in the sequel. At the end of the major quests that need to be finished in order to complete the game, you will be faced with a major choice. There are 2 choices by default, but there is normally a third one as well, should you meet the requirements to be able to choose it. I should have been able to choose this third path at one point as I had satisfied the requirements, yet I still wasn't given the option, which I'm assuming is a bug. It's a shame that I felt forced into making a bad choice because the choice I wanted to make was arbitrarily unavailable. Should this be working as intended though, it means that the game does have a fair degree of replayability should you want to play through the story a second time at a later date. While I have personally finished games like the Mass Effect trilogy or the Dragon Age games many times and I really enjoy doing so, I'm not sure I enjoyed the Outer Worlds quite enough to want to do it all again. Maybe I will feel differently in the future though, perhaps when the sequel is about to come out. Overall, while many aspects of the game were well done and really cool, I found that I couldn't quite give myself over fully to the Outer Worlds and fully embrace it. As a result of this, I'm going to give it an overall score of 8 out of 10. It is by no means a bad game, but it just felt like something was missing. I still have the DLC expansions left to play, and maybe they will help round out the experience and be the missing link I was searching for. We'll find out in a few weeks once I've had a chance to finish them. I'm not sure if that will be the next episode of the Xbox Zone yet or not. I may do something else before that. I will be returning to the Outer Worlds soon for part 2 though, so keep an eye out for that episode. For now though, that brings this episode to an end, so I thank you for watching. See you again for the next one, and in the meantime, take care.